Let's call the meeting of the fiscal court to order. It's a little, maybe 2 minutes before 9:30. The purpose of the meeting today is reviewing the budget to get ready to send it up to Department for Local Government to be approved for form and classification. This is by no means we can amend or change, but we have to have it in, or they want it in by May 1st. So that they can review it. So Emily, where'd we get to?
We had previously discussed the road department, TVA's portion, economic development portion, and but we didn't kind of go over the whole thing, the budget as a whole. It has increased from last year. The total budget is $15,447,036 is our draft budget here. Our carryover has increased, and that is a very good thing. I'm anticipating us carrying over about $1.3 million more than we did the prior year. Some of that is due to the jail fund, the private prisons contracts not being renewed, so the state inmates have been up, so the jail has needed less subsidy than anticipated. We didn't buy mowers that we had thought we might. The prior year we had to put the roof on the sheriff's complex. That took out of what would have been carryover. We also got additional excess fees from the clerk and the sheriff that we didn't anticipate. We had an occupational tax. One of the corporations that had a Kira agreement with the state, which has local impact, expired, so that those funds would be coming back to us that were previously staying within that company.
This was Westlake. We went into an agreement. It was a 10-year agreement for Westlake to make improvements. That's where the guy tried to run over you, High Sheriff. You remember that little incident, I think.
I remember that well.
But anyway, that agreement did expire, and what they did, they went ahead and took out the occupational tax on the employees, but they were able to use that for their operation for a period of 10 years. That has expired, and now that money is coming back into the budget. Go ahead.
We have also been able to put 3% into this budget for employees. Retirement, our contribution percentage has reduced rather than go up.
But your insurance has gone up.
Yes, we did anticipate an increase in health insurance. I assumed 20%, so 10% would impact this fiscal year. So insurance is figured in at 110%.
And your workman's comp is going up as well.
Yes, those insurances have gone up a total of about unemployment, workers' comp, and property and casualty have gone up a total of about $60,000. Unemployment is due to some of the layoffs that we have had. Workers' comp it is due to claims that they have had. And then the property and casualty, Keiko explained to us that they were increasing basically across the board, all of the counties, because your courthouses and things like that were underinsured, that they build back to, they pay the cost of what it costs to build back, where instead of, if we only had this building insured at $1 million and it cost $5 to build back, they would pay the $5, where other companies would just pay the $1 and we'd be stuck with the $4. So
this came about mainly because of the tornado of Morgan County. It got a lot of their county buildings, and they found out they were woefully uninsured, and as a consequence they had to rebuild just about all of their county buildings. Go ahead,
I think
Chris.
that's basically it. It was really funny. In turn, our reserves are also up. This budget, as it's drafted now, has $105,000 reserves in the general fund and $935 in the occupational tax fund, and $136 in the 911 fund, which is a $1 million increase from the prior year.
And we continue to subsidize the ambulance service by, or I'm sorry, not ambulance service, 911, 125 grand a year.
Yes, and there's, Jason Lubiker, our 911 director, I know he has applied for a grant that could pay for that piece of equipment that they have been saving for throughout the years in their reserve fund. So if they get that grant, I would think that we could at least possibly stall our subsidy for a period of time and let them live off of those reserves, what they need for a few years. That'd be a consideration. Obviously, you'd want to check with them what their needs were, but it would be something that we could consider if they are awarded that grant, but I'm not sure exactly when he will know about that. So I think as far as this budget draft goes, we should probably leave it in unless you all choose to do otherwise.
Larry's here. Larry, you want to kind of give us a report on what your needs are going to be at the park?
Basic needs is always, upkeep on the park very, it's not cheap. And we're starting to see some deterioration in some of the things. I guess, if we're taking some equipment that other departments like Russell is considering surplus, and we want it, but that's a good vehicle for us, something good, it's kind of shows the condition of a lot of our vehicles and all around. Not really asking for another vehicle, but we use Chuck Ice a lot of gator type vehicles, and we're down to 3. We've got 2 of them sitting right there, we're getting parts off of. What they've lasted as long as the park's been open, so we've gotten our use out of them. So we would like to at least purchase 2 or 3 of those this year if we could. The equipment we have, most of it's handy down, so at least if we could build a pole barn, what we were hoping to put our equipment under, because what we see from this year, the maintenance costs on a lot of our equipment is just astronomical. We've always got some plans. We'd like to do some things, an amphitheater. I'd really like to do look at a skating rink for the winter. We have Christmas lights, dog park. Those are all things that are on our list, and we're doing all we can to try to help out. We are in the process of looking at a piece of property that we're hoping the board's approved if we can, make an agreement with the landowner. Then maybe get the fair out to us and work. And if we did that, we were talking about a grandstand, we're doing it to an amphitheater. So that kind of leaves on whether we can get to the property or not. The splash pad's getting ready to open, so it looks like our water usage is going to go up. Of course, our gas this year, everything's gone. It's just like anything else, all the utilities and gas and all that.
Is that what the budget increase is
Right.
talking about?
Well, your budget's showing $81,650 increase, 40,000 of that for equipment. Now, I don't know how much those gators are, Larry.
Well, they're about 7,000 a piece for the 3 of them. And then, of course, put in there, I'd love to have a new truck, but that's not something we have to have, but it'd be nice to have. So we'll always put in there for a wish list.
How much do you think, and it's hard to tell, I'm sure,
It is.
what our water will increase with the splash pad? We
See,
know it'll be
no
up.
idea. And we're at crunch time on that, that's why I'm running a little late. We're hoping to get an inspection on that by the end of the week. We just talked to the plumbing inspector, and I I would think that all she would check is the plumbing, but that's not the case now. She wants everything, just like you're gonna open the signage, parking spaces, everything has to be done, just like you're gonna open the doors. So we're really gonna be pushed to get that done by this weekend, so we can get our grant money in time for this year's budget, since we're gonna be over, because all of our splash pad stuff's coming out of our budget this year, you know. And, but we're trying, so we're hoping we can do that. Like, right now, we've got 32 lights out on the ball fields. Those bulbs are very expensive, plus the lift to put them in. Now, I have saved us a lot of money in the last 2 years because I don't have to have an electrician there to do it now, because I have one on, pretty much electrician on staff. But,
What about the concessions? I know you all took that over. Is
we
that?
just took that over. This year, we'll recoup, we had to buy all new equipment because it was all his. This year, we hope to, in fact, I know it will, it'll pay for the equipment and still make the bill. And starting next year, see, it's hard to tell there too, depending on how many tournaments we have. Like we already had 2 rained out, so that's, we can't do anything about the weather. Hopefully that money will go toward land purchase if we can get this land. That's what the board wants to use it for.
Now, those lights, have you already made arrangements for them to be replaced? I mean, we don't have to
really have
replace
it in
them.
the budget right now, you know, but we're probably going to have to wait till, you know, new budget comes out. I mean, you're talking about 4, 5, 6 on every field, and we've got 7 fields lit. So it's not that you can't operate, it just doesn't look real good right now.
And those big lights, what are they each?
Anywhere from $250 to $400 each. And then, like I said, we have to rent one of those lifts that are, especially the soccer field, you know, has to go so high to get up there to do it.
And their bucket truck will do it?
No, nowhere even close. And the bucket trucks, you know, it's hard to get on the fields anyway, especially the ball fields.
Right.
'Cause you can't drive it in there, so you gotta get something smaller width-wise, you know, you can get it there and do it.
Who do we use?
Well, I mean, we, like, the last one we put in, we did ourselves, we just rented one of the lifts.
Oh, I see.
And then, on our budget too, you're talking about day parks, day use parks. Of course, that's up in there with everything going on with the leases and all. They're starting to deteriorate some of these, like they're working some of these day parks. Had Xperia, within 2 years, we're gonna lose that pavilion. It's gonna fall into the river. Because it's eroding so bad there on it. Talked to, left messages to TBA and Core, it doesn't seem like they want to spend any money doing anything on that, so what our options are on that.
TVA wouldn't do it with core, that's a core issue there.
Some of our docks are bad, need to be, you know, new boards and all on those, and ramps. We've got a lot of theft, and some of them, theft and mischief, like at Wesley Village, it's out in the middle of nowhere, and they're starting to see a lot of things disappear, and things being done at those. I've already talked to Kevin, he's patrolling a little more, but you know, you can't stop that, it's just.
Now, like Wesley, we just have a fishing pier. We don't have a
We have
launching.
a walking trail, we have 2 pavilions.
Right, I know we got
We
all
used to
those.
have, 8 picnic tables down to 3.
They just disappeared or tore up.
They're concrete picnic tables, we're walking in those busted. It's just mischief.
What about getting the business community involved in the park, Larry? No, a lot of the counties across the state, they allow businesses to come in and sponsor like an amphitheater project or a skating rink project or something like that. Is that a possibility?
Well, you know, I'll even mention that, but we do have a board that I have to go through with everything. They're just not real receptive to that at all. They want to keep it out as long as possible. Or getting some kind of sponsorship and signed up there. That's their thoughts on it. Just like with the splash pad, you know, we talked about renting it out, at least to one guy, for a private party. Well, they more or less decided against it because, you know, we talked even a couple years ago about maybe even renting the main pavilion, and, you know, Moriel expressed that taxpayers already pay enough money, so we don't have to pay any more, or have any more pavilion, so they were like, well, if we do that, it's gonna be the same thing, we get one complainer, you're gonna say, we better not do that, or
I personally don't have a problem with fees as long as it's going toward a project.
Right.
You know, I just think taxpayers can't shoulder everything, so, you know, to make it a bigger park and offer more amenities, you know, I mean, our local bank went to Murray and sponsored something that was good for their business, and I think we would have people that would.
And I really feel like we could probably get some things like that, you know, but that's strictly up to our board and you guys on whether you want to allow that in. It's not my call.
The board's reluctance, I assume, I don't know, I haven't talked to them, but I assume they're just a little skittish about commercialization
Right.
of the park.
And I can see that, you know, but then again, if you do it the right way. You know,
Well, I mean,
for
there's
example, like
signs
I
all
was,
over the ball
every
fields
time
and
I'm around the
businesses.
park, I drive through, and over the park, I drive through, we have a beautiful new playground. A small sign, the James Marine, paid for that.
Well, you got the play center in the mall
Right.
in Paducah. I don't, in this day and age, I just don't see that. I mean, you've got signs all over all the ball fields where businesses sponsor
We don't,
advertising.
everybody else does.
But, you know, I mean, it's there already, so I would think. for
About the only thing we have a sponsorship is for Pepsi. Products are in the store, so. And then at Christmas, we do the Christmas cards. And that's another issue on Christmas. I mean, last year, I think we had 5,000 in there for Christmas. Well, it takes that just to get the old stuff ready. So if we want to ever increase and do something, we have to look at maybe even that out.
It's increased here to 10.
Right, but we've got 3 or 4 more big things that we'd like to do, but it takes that to do it.
And if you had a sponsorship, you could do that without.
And your utilities is went from 55 to 80. That's a $25,000 increase there.
Because we're gonna be short this year
Water.
on that, so we kind of,
Yeah, we did that in anticipation of the water
the
bill
splash pad.
and plus the utilities are just running high across the board.
So is that something that they would be willing to look into if asked to, or are they just adamantly opposed to it? Or, I mean, if it was the difference in bringing in an amphitheater or a skating project or something, would they?
well, like I said, that more or less, everything we're bringing in now, going into our account, and hopefully use that toward purchase of property if we can. And of course, I can't say.
I just think you'll be right back in the same position though, having to increase your budget, you know, which is what they've expressed concern over, and I have too, about how much can the taxpayers do. Of course, everybody wants a nice park, but it seems like if you partnered with the business community, it would just make sense to improve park.
And to keep that park the way it needs to look like it does now, it's beautiful. If you go out there, it still is. I mean, I got to commend whoever was there from the beginning, because it was done right, which makes it easier to take care of it. But what you have to realize too is that we do have 2 shifts working on 365 days a year. I'm gonna let them have a little overtime. I mean, I would cut about $12,000 a year of overtime. So we're doing everything we can to get that budget down, but it comes to a point where you use things so much and things start to carry, you got to eventually, you know, do some things. Wish I could decrease it, but it's impossible to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the light show's a wonderful thing, but I don't think people realize how much it costs to put it on. I mean, it does a great thing for Needline, but there's a big cost associated. It almost seems like a.
And that's where I'm
partnership
thinking
on
if
that.
eventually we could, you know, earmark some of that money if we're gonna start charging for things to a skating rink to have that you can actually charge for it. That they're seeing as they come in for the light show, and you got all this
Addition to
cost.
The park does look very good though.
Any other questions for Larry?
And that may be something that if you all, or one or two of you, want to come to the board and express that, you know, maybe you ought to start looking at, you know, set some guidelines as to what you can put up to honor those private donations.
We've got an additional 15 in here under equipment. Is that gonna be the gators or go toward the gators, or is that other equipment?
Well, our mowers, there's 1,000 hours somewhere. So if you're looking at $9,000 go through, the guys work on as much as you can, I think, put more than 2 years, slower and all, they put more into it than you can just buy it yourself. So we're at that point now where that equipment's been used so long.
What can you, do you have a number as far as what do you think you need? Or can you get a number at some point?
Like I said, if we can get one new mower, I mean, that's, but the training, that's about 9,000. I mean, we could go down to 10 on that easy.
Plus you don't need 10 total on the
No, I
line.
mean, that's what we get. And we can push the mowers, another year. We just gotta make sure we get the top of it. We're talking about 90 acres, and not think we have a flag somewhere.
We'll have to keep, I mean, we've got a, depreciation certainly comes into play with any kind of equipment. It's going to eventually wear out. You've got to,
And if you can get on top of it and trade it, but it's still got some value, it's still waiting. Yeah, you can keep running them, but then you're paying full price when you go buy something, so you get at least $1,000, $2,000 out of it. Got less out.
Well, if your utilities come in lower, I guess that might be a line item that's got quite a bit of play in it, just because you don't really know.
Right.
What about the training you went to last week? Do you foresee that new program being a benefit to you all and being able to?
I think it'll really be a big benefit, especially on grant projects, any kind of big project, any kind of disaster, clean stuff, really, really helpful. I'm gonna start using it on some of our equipment as far as any preventive maintenance, just to show, how much we're spending on some of these things that it's gonna be really great for next year as far as the budget goes and show, hey, this is worth this and what we spend on it.
This is how many man hours it took to complete this project, that's what it
It'll be good for like any of the projects that like special project works on, or bigger projects, it's gonna show them how much it actually costs to do those.
Does use of that new system require any equipment purchases, any of that figured into here, I assume? Maybe?
No, not really. We'll probably need to update our computers out at the car. We'll be hearing a lot of stuff, those are pretty outdated. This, cars and computers out. And we did run the fiber optic out to the park, where everything goes online and power. We'll have Wi-Fi and all that at the park. Be able to put some apps on some phones for the tournaments. Do some new technology out there once in a while. And the board itself had to pay to get it run from the road back to that, which was 14,000, so we're bringing that out of our work we got up there, so the county will incur that cost.
I know the board has talked in the past, I don't know that we've ever followed through, but having a couple events a year for Friends of the Park, for that fund that you have there. I don't know whether they've given any more thought to it.
I haven't heard anything about that. That is a good idea.
Creating a foundation where people can just roll to you.
Well, you have a
We do have a foundation.
you have a foundation already. Well, I'm
We're really
saying,
hoping this,
we just haven't had any.
Like
Really helping
publicity.
us.
Big things, yeah.
I mean, we're 20 to 40 a year, vary that much. It's gonna be very beneficial to us by taking that out.
Well, and you have more control over when it's open. I know there's been some concern in the past about having
Just like we
something
got a pool group
open.
coming in tomorrow.
Mhm.
Really, there's some things we can do. So, trying to think of ways to bring in some extra.
How many counties, I've been out there, we've had school groups in from Ballard, Graves, different counties, are they still?
Probably 15 to 20 different counties use it. We're running into a little problem now, but we do have such nice facilities. And like our soccer field, we don't charge anything for practicing and playing, so we've had counties calling. We're gonna do something about that, just calling, scheduling practice, because we have lighted fields, which nobody else does. So they're just coming and using our fields and we'll put the field, and we turn on lights on, it's not cheap. So we're gonna have to come up with some kind of, trying to figure out how to do that, as far as charging They're not from Marshall County.
How about going through the soccer association to do that?
Well, we have, but here's what happens. Now, it used to be simple. Marshall County Soccer Association, you let them play. Now you've got every team's got 2 or 3 kids from Marshall County on it. You know, traveling teams.
You got those traveling teams and.
All right, but they say, well, we've got 2 or 3 kids
Yep.
from Marshall County on it, so what do you do?
Yeah.
And if I'm a coach, I'm gonna tell you, I've got a couple of kids from Marshall County, so I can practice and play out there. And I can send you a list all day long, you can read on it. I mean, it's just very hard to police something like that. It's almost like you got to charge everybody or nobody. So, board's looking at that now. Let them decide. I do have one thing I want to ask you. Going out to Olive on Saturday, I passed by, Jeff was telling me a story on the old Iron Bridge down there. It was so cool. I mean, it really is. I don't know why we don't, maybe it's out in the middle of nowhere, you can't dress it up any to make it look, I don't know if that was something I could look at too. It's all grown up now, we walked out on it. I think it's something we ought to kind of dress up, maybe put some of the history behind it out there and all.
Some good and some bad.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Mostly good.
I mean, I have no deal, but
It's an old bridge.
I'd rather go out there at least clean up around it and all, see a little better.
Well, that's one TVA doesn't own, so I guess it's nice. I don't know.
And that's why I'm hesitant on this Danish part of the budget, because, you know, I don't know what your last talks with them are, but
It was not pleasant.
I'm sure it wasn't.
We met in the fiscal courtroom, the old courtroom downstairs, conference room. And they brought people up from Muscle Shoals, Knoxville. We had a pretty good discussion. They're going to appear before the fiscal court next Tuesday. And my feelings have not changed. They have no skin in the game whatsoever. We developed the parks, we built the shelters, we put in the boat launching ramps, we put in the courtesy docks, we blacktop, we put in playground equipment at Big Bear. And they want us to pay them $5,000 just to consider renewing the lease. Well, Jeff asked the question and they answered it correctly. What did we pay when we got the original lease? Zero. They said, well, that was paid through the appropriated budget. Well, they didn't have a clue. These young bucks didn't know about the appropriated budget. I said, I went to Washington and testified before the House and the Senate to preserve the appropriated budget, and Ronald Reagan was president. I was president of the Association of Tennessee Valley Governments at that time. We got it restored, $102 million a year. That's where TVA used that money for local development, rural fire departments, other things. 4 years later, that TVA walks in and says, we don't want it anymore. I said, now whose fault is that? Now, all I'm asking is they renew our lease. You know, we keep it maintained. We've got over $100,000 invested. And they have nothing. Now, we let it grow back up. You know, I'm pretty stubborn on this issue. I'm pretty raw about it. You know, you go down there today and see how many people are parked down there using that launching ramp to go fishing in their reservoir.
It's under the mowing contract, and I sent 2 guys 1 day a week, and each one of them just clean up, maintenance.
That's what I'm saying.
More than that. It's not cheap.
Do you have any intention of applying for grants or anything like that on any of those day use parks? I mean, that's, you know, there's $1,500 option on the renewals, but of course, if you intend to apply for any grants, that could be the difficulty there, so.
Well, I talked to Josh, and I'm not grant you ever something like that, if you're doing some kind of use very much. I think there's still some room to do. It's just, like I said, Kelly County Patrol moving out just because of something going on.
Well, TVA did away with their, or virtually, I don't know if they totally, Kevin, did away with their police
They got one guy.
department, so it's left up to the sheriff's department. And I pointed that out to them the other day. I said, you guys are not coming down there patrolling, my sheriff's department's doing it. You know, I think doing a pretty good job. We don't hear a lot of doping and stuff going on that they use parts. For the most part, they keep them clean.
Exactly.
And when they don't, our guys are down there to do it. So, see, that's what puzzles me. Why does TVA feel like we ought to pay them for keeping their property neat and open to the public? I don't get it.
Because they can't.
Well,
Well, I mean, basically it's their land, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how they. how
well,
they
basically,
explain
it's
it.
their land, but if we don't do it, it's just gonna go grow up.
Yeah, I mean, at
and-
the end of the day, you almost have to pay
Right,
the
we've got
fee.
too much
because-
invested, huh?
No, I don't have to pay the fee. You can vote, you know, we can vote to pay it, but
I
it
mean,
won't
if
be
it comes
with
down
my
to
vote.
$1,500, I think it's.
I don't care if it's 15 cents, it's wrong.
I agree with you, Judge. I don't like having to pay it, but when you're talking $1,500 for not having a park in that area, you know, I don't know, I think a concession probably has to be made, but, that was my concern is whether or not grant funding would be impeded if we didn't, you know, the $5,000 would be fine if, in 30 years would be fine for a grant application, but the other
In
side.
fact, we're really trying to find some money now. The walking trails in the park are starting to deteriorate pretty bad. Just to resurface, what I got is about 120,000.
Well, just, I don't know, I'm afraid I don't have, I'm not so afraid, I agree with the judge. I'm in the process right now, personally, I'm doing some work with TVA, it's not going very well. And this dollars, whether it's 1,500 or 5,000, are for archaeological studies and studies for endangered species, which I could understand that if you were creating a brand new, developing a brand new area. The paving, the concrete, all the trees that are going to be cut have been cut, all that's done. If they had had something there originally, I could understand that, but for the things that they're supposed to spend these dollars for, there's no reason for it. That's the only thing that would aggravate me. I mean, if they can justify, yes, we need to do this, you know, and for whatever reason, and if we were developing a whole new park, absolutely, you need to do an archaeological study. I mean, that's part of it. You need to make sure that the Indiana bat's not anywhere around. I understand that.
They're staying over in Evansville now, I worked that out.
I understand that, but for an area that's already developed, it's really
The gentleman
unreasonable.
that you talked to that day, like if I send a crew out to clean up some brush, I can't do it. I have to go out and mark what brush I'm gonna clean up and call him to come back and make sure he's not disturbing something.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt it's absolutely frustrating. I just, you know, I've seen us spend a whole lot of money, a lot more money on things that I would probably think are of a whole lot less value. So it just comes down to me of whether or not I think the parks are of value. And we've got one that expires now, I think one or two that expire in 2019 and a couple in 2021. And incrementally, you know, we've never had to pay anything. And I don't,
But
you know.
If you know what they're gonna say, we all.
Well, and isn't it true that this, even if they go to this $1,500 licensing fee, there's a 30-day revocable in
Oh,
either side?
they can come in and say, you're
What do they do
done.
if we don't pay it?
If you don't pay the 1,500 or the 5,000, just take their land back, I guess, and.
No, what
and
they'll
remove
do,
your stuff.
we'll have so many days then to go in and reclaim everything we've put on.
Right.
But then if you damage their land, of course, with all the provisions they've set forth, and, you know, you see what I'm saying? I mean, I think you could easily incur, you know, 2 times what they're saying originally just by going out there and trying to remove your stuff, because then they might say that you damaged the property. So, again, I mean, nobody wants to have to pay it, but $1,500, and yes, it's a revocable permit, but I did look at the statistics on how often they revoke those permits, and it's It's very rare, except with the occasion of an environmental disaster or things like that on public use lands.
What is
Commercial
that total cost? Is that just to?
$1,500.
That's just for them to
non-expiring.
review a permit. That's not to give us a permit, that's to review a permit. That's what they wanted the 5,000 for, to review a permit. You know, I'm just saying, we got, you gotta draw a line somewhere. You know, now if they'd come in and they'd share that with us, and they'd paid half the cost of the blacktop, the boat launching ramps, those things were precast, shoved in, and they can be brought out. Courtesy dock, which is for the convenience of the people.
Right.
They say, well, our obligation is the ratepayers. Who are we?
But what's our obligation to the people of the community who enjoy those day-use parks? I mean, that's how I look at it. It's not whether or not I would want to pay it or whether or not I like it. It's whether or not the people of that community think it's worth $1,500, and I would venture to say they do. I would venture to say they do, because we
Yeah, you
just
go out to these cars, they're all being
spent
called.
$3,000 on a dock revitalization project. I mean,
That'd be great for all of them to just step up and write us a check, $100 a piece, and get a 1,500.
they do in their taxes every year. They do. So that's what I'm saying, you know. I just look at it, if they were up here voting on what they wanted in their community, they would probably say it was worth the $1,500.
I think we'd be surprised to see how many people use it to dock
Probably so.
It's
Go ahead
a
and look at-
tourism issue.
Go ahead and
I mean,
look at, go ahead and
it's a
look at the
benefit.
license plates.
Yeah,
It's a benefit, state and federal level, it's,
Spending money here.
right, right.
it's a benefit all the way around. I mean, there's, I don't know, Representative Whitfield and Senator Rand McConnell, I don't know any of that. To me, they should be getting involved in this.
They were. Congressman Whitfield's office, I met with TVA last week, and Congressman Whitfield's office met with me because I had questions. I wanted to understand this before we went in and discussed it, and I don't think we have a choice in paying it, but, you know, I don't really know it's something I'm willing to draw the line and stand on either, so, personally.
Just continue business as usual for now, you know.
Well, till next week.
I think need to be some improvements if we are to keep over the use.
Any other questions of Larry? Thanks, Larry. Oh, Larry, one thing, I guess I need to ask technicals. On a pole barn, I think the special projects group did the last one. What was the cost of that? You know,
Around 20.
about 20,000? Okay. I thought it was somewhere in there, but
Even last year, we kind of had him, discuss, we'll get us some prices on it, right, when we decided we need it.
and that's with a concrete floor.
Right. Because see now, one of our other concerns is if we rent the building that we have there, and all of our equipment sits outside in the back. When you come in, a lot of times you've got kids climbing all over the mowers, the gators, backhoe, everything. There's kids, and there's no way to keep them out. And so I'm afraid something's gonna happen. If somebody gets hurt, they're in trouble.
You're talking about utilizing the property that we've got behind
Right,
us
so
there.
the,
where you
park
level
lot
out.
behind there is where we could put it. Just that way it's in there and it's locked up, nobody can get to it. But we find that a lot. I'm surprised we haven't had some things disappear. We've been very lucky.
Okay. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you. Amen.
Go ahead.
Would you all like to just kind of go through the budget at the beginning and skip over any sections we've already discussed?
You starting with appropriations or receipts?
We can start with receipts. Receipts won't take too long. It's a lot simpler than appropriations. It's right here. I just made a few adjustments to our tax income as I was seeing trending this year.
Have you talked to Tony about any of that?
He did come see me, I think Friday, and he has he has increased assessments and.
That's what I was thinking. He's done,
other
made some
areas, so, I
adjustments in
mean,
some
this-
areas.
Yeah, so this could be under budgeted.
Okay.
Well,
That's
it'll be
fine.
under than over.
No, much
Yes.
rather, but
Yeah,
I think
so-
he has made some adjustments.
He felt like his adjustment, could net possibly $100,000, so it's
Okay,
not
that's what I thought.
not a huge fluctuation there, but it's enough to help pad
Yeah,
our reserves for the following year. Which is after the 14-15 budget year is the year that we will have to keep intact, 65% of the budget with the election year for the new court, for the incoming court to come in,
Is it 60 or 65?
65.
65.
now. At one time it was 60. So you have to have intact for a new administration coming in.
Yes. Clerk says his fees are down. That's in anticipation that he has, hired an employee due to their CAVIS programming coming in. The health insurance reimbursements is down 20,000. That's to reflect what we got this year. It could potentially be less than that. And that is your major changes, most of them in general fund. Road fund, the subsidy that we have to put in there is actually decreased by $200,000. That's due to an increase in county road aid. In jail, has for the most part stayed the same with the increase in state prisoner anticipated income. Occupational tax administrator, we budgeted an increase 50,000 on in anticipation that expired Kira. We are not showing any type of loan or subsidy to the refuse district, so that frees up that 200,000. I am showing an increased transfer out from occupational tax administrator to our other funds. The increase is almost $350,000 to go out to the other funds from the prior year. However, our cash on hand should be about $1 million higher than it was the prior year. And 911 fees, they have trended down some. And it does have our continued subsidy in there.
And when you say trended down, what you mean is people are not using landlines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Using cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
And we've argued this point with the General Assembly for years and seem to get nowhere on a change in that law to allow you to charge the same amount of cell phones as we do landlines, but they're not listening, so I don't see that happening. We've talked about it for 3 sessions, no bill has come out.
Well, I'm hoping this lawsuit that's in
Right.
effect right now will help change that. That'd give some relief to it anyway.
Yeah, it would. When's that gonna be heard, Kevin, do you know?
I don't, do you know
They
when?
filed a federal lawsuit. I've never heard an update on that. I knew they were waiting and they had through the
Well,
end
it's
of
a
April.
Kentucky Court of Appeals right now is where it's
So
at.
appeals has it?
Yeah,
Okay.
appeals has it right now, and I don't know when our arguments on that is supposed to be. But the circuit court that it was out of has upheld it and put it up there, and if the appeals court, doesn't rule against it, I think we got a pretty good venue right there to attack that. Hope so, anyway.
Do y'all have any questions on receipts? Okay, would you rather go through payroll or appropriation?
I guess probably appropriation.
Okay. All right. Judge's office, the advertisements were in the judge's budget. I did move those out of his budget into, the 015025, which is the fiscal court budget, just because that's not the judge's responsibility. So I tried to move the things that are the fiscal court's responsibility into the fiscal court section. So that's where that big reduction is. It's not, technically it is a reduction in his budget, however, it wasn't his to begin with. The only increase is payroll increases. And I have moved everybody, and I think this is the way Andy and I, in looking forward into the new phone system, I think the only feasible way that we're gonna, without spending a lot of man hours on a phone bill, is to chunk it all into one. And that if we ever need to figure out a portion, try to then at that time, rather than every month trying to break it down, because it's just, and it's over my head, that's not my department, but it's not based on usage, it's not based on data, it's more, and it's not necessarily just a per fee line. So what I've done is I've removed everybody's phone budget and chunked it into one under I think it's under fiscal court, for the telephone. Yes, yeah, one telephone budget for the entire county, for at least the ones that are going to be in our system. And I think the plan is 90% of them should merge into that system. The same thing with the county attorney's budget. And the clerks and the sheriffs. The sheriff's does reflect that $100 change in his subsidy. Down on your fiscal court lines, that's where we have included for the filming fees, advertising, delinquent tax software there, and the phone is all incorporated into that new area. Under PVA, that does allow for Tony's request at our last meeting. It is in there. My budget, last year I merged the occupational tax administrative part of that budget into my treasurer's budget. And in doing so, I guess I wasn't really sure as to what to anticipate throughout the whole year merging those together, and I feel like I was over budgeted. So I have made several reductions and combined us more into one unit rather than two. Election expenses, with this only having the May 2014 election, that's definitely helped. We did budget a slight increase in equipment because the batteries in the machines are going to need to be updated, and they are about $250 a piece. So
That to you up
yes, on this one
to
you've got.
10.5.
Yes, Tim had said that the company that administers our elections had suggested that we increase that to cover those batteries, because you don't want to have a battery short out during the middle of an election. The increase in the, I changed the wording from county planner to water vision to ease confusion. But water vision's increase is due to an increase awarded by North Marshall that they reimburse us on his salary. So that's where that increase has come from. It is not our expense. That is
It's a
reimbursed.
reimbursement.
Yes. There is a 3% in there that is ours, but the majority of it is from the district. The same thing is just the removal of the phone budget for the economic development, and Josh spoke with us last meeting. Courthouse, I did repairs. We hadn't used this line greatly, so I reduced repairs, but yet turned around and increased the remodeling budget. Justin had gotten some estimates on flooring this room here, since we have moved the courtroom upstairs, and one of them was $8,900. So I think that, didn't that include like removing the jury box and scooting?
You remove the jury box, you're gonna have to bring the floor.
You're right. So I did kind of shift that from repairs to
Well, that's
remodeling.
not something we have to do.
No, but it is something that I put in there for you all to
Yeah.
consider.
Okay.
Other county buildings, I did increase that 10,000. We are just seeing, as other buildings get some age to them, we're just seeing an increase in repair items. So I did bump that up a tad bit to this one. Bumped it up 10,000. Utilities, we're seeing an increase in utilities, so I bumped it up 5,000. And then other buildings repairs, I added 5,000 to that, and that is for new ceiling tiles in the sheriff's and 911 detention complex. They are in need of those and have requested that we consider that, so I added that in. The judicial center budget, it pretty much washes out minus increase in equipment. I know Ricky's staying on top of that. GIS.
Oh, hold on just a
Yeah,
minute
sure.
before we get away from the judicial. AOC, if I understood Carla correctly, we're trying to find out if they've got a mold problem in one section there, and that AOC was gonna either pay all of it or a big portion of it.
Yeah, I think a
So
good
we don't
portion of
know
it, yeah.
yet what that'll be, but, we've been assured by AOC they're gonna take care of the bulk of it anyway.
Because there's not anything added in there for special situations
Right,
like
I
that.
understand, that's what I'm saying.
Right. GIS. The computer software development, the majority of that this past year's 30,000 is for use of, that's for our antivirus software, things like that. I did bump that up a little bit because with the new phone system is going to be a few more additional charges that we necessarily weren't anticipating probably. The phone system, I talked to Andy and this is not an additional 15 that he will need. It's probably going to basically roll over. I'm not sure that he's going to have everything purchased that he needs purchased by June 30th. So this is just to allow him some room to grow there. The data processing supplies, such as Larry mentioned, his computers are aging. What Andy said is that Windows XP, I believe it is going to stop being maintained after a certain point, and Andy is going to need to either upgrade their Microsoft software or replace their unit. In most situations, if that unit's 8 to 9 years old, it's going to be cheaper to go ahead and replace it. So that's where that increase is coming from, is that to get the phone system into place, we may have to look at buying a few new computers. Other than that, their budget remained the same also. Juvenile officer, there's no change. Building inspection, I left the same also. Rescue squad and emergency management. Those are salary changes and telephone changes, minus on the emergency notification equipment. I increased that $10,000 due to, we've had one siren, I think Melissa said, that is having problems. They're going to have to ship it off for repair and ship it back, I think it is. And that they are getting a little age on them and going to need to have a little bit more in there than what we put. What we put in there is pretty much just covers the minimum. This gives us room in case one needs repairs that we can get that corrected. Ambulance service. Brian said that uniforms, we hadn't increased that line item in many years, and that just the increased cost of the uniforms, $5,000 would do him. He usually bought uniforms in the spring and the fall, and that would buy about 1.5 of them. It wouldn't give him a full two purchases throughout the year, so he asked that we increase that so that he would be able to keep the two purchases.
$3,000.
Yeah. And the equipment is reduced due to last year we carried over more because we were going to have to buy the truck. It wasn't a remount. We were going to have to buy a truck and a box. This year will be the same thing. However, the bids were lower than the 160, so we felt like we were real comfortable in bringing it down to 135 instead of keeping it 160.
Now, is this the last year for the rent in the Calvert City ambulance building?
December, when I tried to track that down, and I believe it's December 2014 is the last payment on the rent. However, it doesn't stop there. It would be refigured, and it will probably be greatly less, but there will be an when I talked to Mr. Northcott, we thought that probably about next May we needed to start. They needed to start the reconfiguration process of what the new rental payment would be, so that you all would have time to decide whether we wanted to continue that or not. There's no changes in the hospital and healthcare or cemetery board portions. I did not put in any kind of increase any kind of cemetery maintenance projects. I know that was something that we had done in the past, but I did not put that in there, so if that's something you all wish to do. You'll need to,
Well, I think we could do that on a case-by-case basis. If they
exactly.
come
we
up
can-
with a project that feel
Yes.
like is worthy, they can bring it before the court.
I think that's a good plan.
Yeah.
The increase to special service group contributions, that is the dental plan. That leaves all the others in place, and then we were kind of scrounging this year. I bumped it from 15 to 25, and that will do the organizations that we did this past year plus the dental program.
Isn't the health department gonna pay that this year?
I think because we were,
Yep, they said they would consider it. Once we get everything done, I'll take it back to them. Right now, we're just trying to get in the building.
I think we were actually though behind a year, Misty.
Yeah.
I think there was 2 years actually. We paid the one and they're paying, we paid one this year was actually for last year. Then they're paying this year.
This
So the
year,
next
this is
year's
the
would
next
be
one.
falling back to
Yeah.
us. Parks budget we just discussed. Our debt service, this shows the changes in our debt service. That FLW contingency we have to leave in there.
Emily, what is that? Can you explain that to me?
I-
I asked and,
I will have to ask Tim and get back with you. I believe it is when,
The spec building, isn't it?
yes, the spec building, that if they were to default on that loan, we have to have in our budget that we have the money to pay that if they were to not be able to pay it, because
We
are-
haven't had to pay it
We are
yet.
on the line, we are kind of co-signers on
Yeah.
that.
so we just have to keep that money available. It's like
Exactly.
a
Exactly.
available line item. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So we don't actually pay it to anybody, it just says if they default, then
If
we
they
have the money.
default,
Right.
then they come back to us to pay it.
That explains
yes.
it. Okay.
Yes. Our judicial center payment will be $43,750 next year. The Arts Commission debt will be $16,000. I also on the swap side have receipts for that no. I have to look and see. It should be that $16,000 to come back in from the Arts Commission. And then our water vision, we expect that loan will be closed up and that project finalized by then, and that will run us about $22,000. We did put the Port Authority expense back in there. Last year, we were given a reprieve from that, but this year it is back in there. Then county insurance is up $20,000, as I discussed with you earlier. Membership dues is up, and I think that I increased that due to the penny roll
Narcotics task
jumping
force.
up from what it was before.
And do we have a list of all those that, so we can see? Cause I mean, I have no idea, I just look at it and
Yeah.
see membership dues.
Yes, I'll be happy to get you, it's the list of where we've paid those out.
Okay.
All of our dues, judges, sheriffs.
Yeah.
Magistrates, commissioners,
Yeah.
all of us do belong to our
Treasurers, yeah.
associations, KCO,
Yeah.
they're all lumped in,
I had a
in
general
this.
idea, I just
Yeah,
wondered.
yeah. And then the remaining ones, the only, you've got payroll issues that are increases due to payroll increases, and then workers' comp and an employment increase.
Those are biggies.
On,
Oh.
how, Was there a reason why those two went up, our unemployment and our workman's comp? Is it just kind of like insurance, it just incrementally goes up, or?
Well, it varies. There for a while, we were, holding our own.
Okay.
There's been a lot of claims, and they look at it from a statewide position, Misty, from CAECO.
Okay.
And Callaway's went up a whole lot more than ours, because Elkins asked me, did we get an increase? And I said, yes. But he told me, but he said, they're showing me where the claims are coming. But still, we settled one or two for the county, this year. So,
I know the refuse district's hit on, especially workers' comp, was a lot bigger than, I mean, in ratio, it was quite a bit higher than ours.
yeah, that's where they got hit.
So, in talking with Jeff Thompson week before last, he suggested that we put together like a safety committee that looks at these kind of risks and losses to review that kind of thing.
Is that where they come in to do like a risk analysis for the county? And
Yeah, but he suggested that we actually form a committee that would meet on a quarterly basis to review those kind of things, to kind of figure out why this happened and how we can prevent it in the future. Have an active committee that would start that. And he said, generally, they will come in and run your first meeting for you, show you kind of what to look at and how to run it. And he said, generally, it consists of your department heads and possibly, if not your total fiscal court, at least one member and a judge or something like that, so that you can keep those costs to a minimum.
that'd be good for us.
Be fine with me.
And that's all
That's
in
it.
general fund. Road fund, we had discussed at the prior meeting. Russell and I haven't made any changes since then. The jail fund, we had discussed it slightly before. There's an increase in food and medical. That's due to the increase in inmate population. I removed their
That's about the two biggies, right?
Yes, yeah. Building maintenance, I increased that line also because they're just seeing, as the building deteriorate, ages, they're seeing more repairs needed. And then, occupational tax, as I said before, there's no, refuse district subsidy. Occupational tax refunds, I've held at 100,000. I think that we'll be able to maintain that. The only increases to 911 are, salary. And our veteran van fund looks like, due to our continued surrounding county support and the sale of the van that we had, that we'll be able to actually have a slight reserve in there to carry forward to the future years, so that if we have a county that's unable to pay at some point, we'll have some to assist.
I think we skipped over ASAP in the animal control section.
I'm sorry. I probably skipped a page.
It's page 6 on mine, but I'm not sure what it is on yours.
Okay. Oh, sorry. ASAP, that is subject
In and
to her grant, and it's just a wash. It will match whatever she brings in. Animal control, I separated the animal control officers from the animal shelter and the kennel staff, just for clarity on our purposes, while we're seeing what animal control costs and things like that goes. And I have not had the opportunity to sit down with the shelter. This is basically a carryover of their current budget, so they may want to make some changes to it, but generally they stay within the same dollar amount. It's just a movement of the money.
See if we can call them in the next day or two, sit down with them.
Okay. Animal control, though, I put in for, that's 2 officers. Budgeted $1,000 for supplies, 12,000 for fuel, cause their fuel was running right at $1,000 a month. Put in 4,000 for travel and training, since, I think, aren't they gonna be closer now than they were, so that should cover that. And 10,000 for equipment, that may be high, but I think you all were still kinda undecided as to what all we needed at this point,
Their
so.
vehicle's ready now. I think it's gonna need some basic tune-up work and things like that, is what Dennis was saying. And the fuel.
Which
should go
vehicle, is that the
down.
one you
Yeah.
got kept?
I think you'll see a decrease in the fuel.
When is, have you already turned it over?
Yeah, Dennis
Only
has
shipped
already
to one
got it,
truck.
yeah.
Okay. What we need him to do is take it out to the shop, let them, you know, do you think it needs tuning up a little bit, you say, or?
Dennis did.
I don't know, he was in here just a minute
Okay.
ago, I don't.
You want it
I
to
mean,
go to the road department, Judge? Is that where you want it to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
we could tune it up for them and
I say it shouldn't need
change
a lot.
oil and do
because
whatever we need to do to keep it, you know, I want the service good if we're gonna be out on the road
Yeah,
with
it,
it.
it shouldn't need much.
That's why I
Maybe an oil
started to say
change,
you-
'cause it's, you know, it's running good when we used it. And
Yeah.
I think the only other issue, I think, is changing the lenses out. That was the only other thing y'all were gonna do to it, I believe.
And do you all want to, it's $143 is the estimate the sheriff had for them to change out from blue lights to like an amber or something like that. Do you all want to approve that now for them to go ahead and have that changed out?
Fine with me.
I think we'll have to do that next week
Okay.
in a regular court meeting.
Okay.
But I don't have any problem, that's no problem. And it's, what'd you say, 100 and
143?
something?
Yeah, it's $143 and
Nothing,
change. Yeah, it's
yeah.
just the linear footage of the lens to
Yeah.
cut it and the end caps, and that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just change it over from.
Okay.
And their fuel, I think, is running high because, you know, they've been having to put fuel in their personal vehicles. You know, it's always going to be a little bit more, so
Yeah, that'll-
hopefully you'll see a decrease.
With that vehicle, yeah, that'll cut that way back because you're not gonna be paying them the mileage, you know, it'll be.
Just only for,
Yeah.
whenever they're responding to calls.
If y'all, where are y'all gonna fuel that up at? Are y'all gonna?
I think they're fueling up at the refuse and they're keeping it
Okay.
separate
Yeah,
for
and
us.
they bill
Yeah,
animal control and then shelter separately.
Yeah, we'll continue that.
And then I guess while we're looking at this, the animal shelter needs a vehicle. They have the red truck, which Philip has worked on until he says it can't be worked on anymore. So they found a vehicle at McCully, and Jeff was able to work out a really good deal. Let's say, what year is it?
It's
I don't remember.
06, something like that.
94,000 miles for $5,600, and it's one of the big, it's like a cargo box
Right.
van.
Small box van.
Oh, like
They've
what
got
one?
$3,000 in donated funds that they can put toward it, so they would need $2,600 from the fiscal court. But that's pretty good for them to have a good
56.
vehicle, I think. They had some donated funds that were unrestricted that they said that they could put toward it. So I don't know what you
Is
all
that
want.
this year's funds though? That wouldn't be
Well,
next
they
year.
gave us 6 months, is that right? 6 months. They're gonna go ahead and pay the $3,000 from the shelter, and McCully gave us 6 months to
Basically hold the note.
try to
Oh, okay.
pay it off, if you all would agree to do that. But right now, they don't have any way to they're having to use their personal vehicles to and from all these adoption events, and I don't know if they're charging, I haven't seen any gas receipts, but they probably should be.
There
Maybe a
are a
couple.
few that they're charging mileage, but that's what we had told them to do, you know, if you're using your personal vehicles or something.
But it
it's
takes
just-
like 4 vehicles to get those credits. I
Yes.
mean, it's just cumbersome, so.
Yes.
But anyway, 2,600, I guess, would be the request if you all want to consider that, and they would pay the rest. And I think that's with a trade-in, isn't it?
Yes.
With the trade-in.
Any other questions? I've got one issue, and it's a personnel issue that I'd like to, and I don't know whether we need to wait to do this. I mean, it could affect their budget, that's why, but I'd like to talk about it just briefly in executive session.
Make make the motion, Judge.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Come down. Call the court back into regular session. We had an executive session on an issue that could be a potential problem, and that's work comp time that people have accrued over a period of time. And we have some employees who have quite a bit. So as we move into our administrative code, we're probably going to look at putting a limit or whatever is statutorily feasible to limit comp time. The question is, you know, what do we do in those situations we already have? Do we buy them out? Do we work on extended leave time or whatever? But that's something we just wanted to bring to the court's attention, and we'll be working on that as we move through our budget process. Now, as you know, we will ask you to give preliminary approval to the budget to send up to the Department for Local Government. We have to do this by the 1st of May to be approved as to form and classification. The final budget document, final reading, probably in June, first meeting in June, first or second meeting, whenever the court feels comfortable with it. So do I hear a motion to give was it temporary approval? How do you?
It's actually,
first reading?
actually is the first reading.
Our first reading of the budget so we can get it sent up. This is the ordinance 201303, an ordinance relating to the annual budget and appropriation. Be it ordained by the Fiscal Court of Marshall County, Section 1, the following budget is adopted for fiscal year 2013 and 14, and the amounts stated are appropriated for the purpose indicated. General Fund, $7,711,924. Road Fund, $3,718,300. Jail Fund, $2,153,500. Grant Funds, $150,000. E911, $671,000. Occupational Tax Administrator Fund, $1,035,202. Veterans Van Fund, $7,110, for a total of $15,477,036. Section 1, this ordinance shall be published in the Tribune Courier newspaper by title and summary within 30 days following the adoption. This ordinance becomes effective upon passage and publication. All interested persons and organizations in Marshall County are hereby notified that a copy of the county's proposed budget is in full, is available for public inspection at the office of the county judge executive during normal business hours. What is your pleasure?
Judge, was that at 477 or 447?
$15,447,036, Bob.
Okay, all right, that's good.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
I have a
First
motion.
reading.
Is there a second? Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. We'll send this up. Do I go ahead and sign this
Yes,
now?
Judge.
And then
I send that up to
and then once we do the final, I think everybody signs it.
We'll just go over the salaries then later, since that was kind of a part of the budget.
Be fine.
Is that-
Yeah. What is today?
29. Any other business?
I was gonna remind everybody, some of you, I think I mentioned that Ray Jean Coursey passed away, the county clerk of Callaway County. Ray was just a delightful guy to be around. Of course, he's been in a wheelchair since an accident in high school. And also, Miss Martha Sue Jones passed away. Her funeral was this afternoon. There was a green that was in the paper this morning that 50-something years old. I'm not sure if that was any kin to Mike or that group. I just saw it in the paper this morning. Did you see it, Terry?
Yeah.
It was in the paper this morning, so I didn't know if it was some of our people or not. Okay.
Judge, what about our refuse board appointment? Since Mr. Edwards has passed, we haven't had a replacement board member for the refuse. Is that something we could look at our next meeting, is maybe trying to get a replacement? I know I don't think I have anybody from my district. I don't think you do. Do you have anybody on your district? You have Danny and, well, Danny's Benton's.
Danny's Benton, Charles,
Charlie.
Bob, and Bob both are in my district.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Don't forget Thursday.
Thursday is the
11 o'clock National Day of Prayer.
National Day of Prayer here on the court lawn at 11, Kevin?
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. Usually it's out in front, but they're gonna be over here again,
Yep.
yeah, front. Is our girl still gonna help do that even though they're closed over here?
Sure is.
Is she, Brenda?
Mhm.
Brenda Hodges?
Yep.
Good, okay. All right. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion, Judge.
Have a motion, is there a second? Motion second, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Meeting adjourned.